All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Crossing Swords. As always, I'm Andrew.
And I'm appalled at the state of the British Empire that's heading in, but we'll get to that.
I'm more appalled, right? I've been having a thought all week. I put all this effort into picking intro music for people.
And I've never done it for you?
No.
Don't have the board.
No, but you
it's
could.
Not my control. Well, but then you know what it is. There's no way for me to do music for you.
Do you think I'm going to care? Do you think I won't just be touched?
No, but part of it is the surprise of what's coming. And you listen to it and you go, oh, that's the song.
Yeah, but I might know there's a song coming, but I won't know what the song is.
How will you not know?
What do you mean?
How will you not know? I've got to go through you. I've got to give you the song play.
You could connect your phone via Bluetooth to this thing. That's how I do it.
Yeah, but your phone's connected via Bluetooth.
Yeah, but you can disconnect a device.
Okay, well, look. That's
no, we're not doing it.
That's what you want to do it. That's the way you want to do it. Let's do it. Let me pick out a song.
This is great podcasting.
Yeah, well, do you know what? It doesn't matter because... Okay, no, do you know what? I've got it. I've got the song.
I bet I can guess what it is.
I don't think you can. I'll be quite shocked if you can. So now I've got to connect to the Bluetooth, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
If it will let you.
Okay.
I don't know if I need to do something in the settings for that.
So, see, you set all these demands, and yet there's no realistic way for me to achieve them, is there?
No, see if it can connect. It should do.
Okay, are you still connected?
I'm just disconnecting. I'm disconnected.
Okay, let's see if this comes up. What's the name of the thing?
The Roadcaster.
That's what it's called, is it?
Yeah, the Rode soundboard it should be, or something like that.
I need to start deleting some of these connections. Look at all these things I've connected to.
How many of them do you still use?
Like 4.
Yeah. That checks out though for you.
I'm gonna turn off Do Not Disturb.
It's called the Roadcaster Pro.
I'm gonna turn off Bluetooth and turn it on again.
That's right. We've got professional equipment.
I've never been paid for it, but I've got equipment. It's not coming up. My man, it's not coming up.
It should do. All right, now it should be discoverable.
Roadcaster Pro, there you go. So I'm looking for something that isn't there, aren't I? Right, okay.
Yeah, it says it's now paired to your phone.
Okay, you ready?
Yep, I've turned it up.
Son of a gun.
I have no idea what this is.
To be fair, I don't know the intro.
I know what song this is. I bet you think this song is about you, innit?
Yes, I do believe it. You want to get the name of the song?
No, but I think we're going to get copyrighted to fuck.
Okay, let me stick to the big bit.
And all the girls dreamed that they'd be your partner. They'd be your partner. And
You're so vain. This song is about you.
Don't
vain. I bet you think this song is about you. Don't you? Don't you?
Okay, there
Do you
you
know
go.
the perfect thing
So-
about that was as well? That whole thing took longer than probably all the intros we've ever done put together.
Hope you're happy with yourself. Are you pleased with my choice?
I now know not what to do with the edit. Do I just edit that out of the YouTube one and leave it in the audio one?
I don't know. That's your decision.
Yeah.
I'm happy to help you with that decision.
I'm more than happy for you to help me with
Are
that
you happy
decision.
with your song?
But I feel... Do you know what? It's a dig, but at least you chose a song. So that means
I
something to
chose
me.
a song. And I went old school. Carly Simon. There's not
And
many
look,
people
I'm
who
going to
pick
lean
Carly
into
Simon.
it. I'm going to take it as a compliment.
She's an excellent songwriter. Yeah.
Was it
it's
not
a
one of
huge
the
compliment.
Bjorns who wrote that one?
One of the Bjorns?
Isn't that not ABBA?
That's Carly Simon.
Who the fuck is Carly Simon?
Just a singer-songwriter.
For some reason, I always thought that song was ABBA.
Oh.
And there's no men singing it, is there?
There are no men singing in it because she is a woman.
Look, you can't assume these things today, mate. You're touching on dangerous ground. You might offend some people.
I don't even know if she's still alive.
Should I Google it?
Do you want me to, yeah, Google
Just
it.
keep breaking that 4-4 and being weird. What's her name?
Carly Simon.
Carly. Is it K or C?
C. How many people are called Carly with a K?
There'll be weirdos out there.
Like, if you're called Carly with a K, sort your life out.
She's alive.
Grow up.
She's alive.
She is alive.
Wait, where's the applause button?
For living. Congratulations.
It's going to be on page 1.
Congratulations, Carly.
That's for you. Going strong at 81 years old.
Queen.
Well, look, it's a rammer, so...
Bet you didn't think Carly Simon would get a mention.
I didn't know she existed. So, no, absolutely.
No, you didn't think.
No, wasn't on my list of topics for this episode.
Fair. And, yeah, very fair. You've made me lose everything now.
That I didn't think it would touch that big a nerve to the point we had to track down a song.
I am...
break copyright law.
I'm a doer and I'm a man of my word. If you ask something of me, I provide. I come.
I mean,
through.
you could have gone away, come back, and we.
No, you and I both know that if I go away, I'm not coming back to it.
We're going to have to be techie again in a minute because I'm going to have to reconnect to it because I need to play a couple of things throughout the episode.
I'll disconnect now.
But how have you been, mate? While we're doing that, let's have a.
Well, I was going to ask you that. How are you? Yeah. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. I'm surviving. I'm looking forward to going to Lindsay's at the end of the month. It's normally my big holiday of the year.
Yeah, it's become that for you, isn't it?
Mm.
Your big break, your big getaway.
Yeah, well, I'm just sort of poor, innit? So.
Well, listen, we're all poor.
Yeah, but there's levels of poor. Do you know what I mean?
You're going away.
Like you could be Kemi Badenoch version of working class, where you worked in McDonald's for a bit.
She went to TK Maxx once.
Yeah.
That counts. She did a photo shoot in the Wetherspoons. It all counts.
She used someone's cheaper car like Rishi Sunak to take a photo with. I mean, look, that's a bit libelous. I don't know if
she's very, very working class.
But I do know she hates women.
Very working class. Explains a lot, though.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't explain a lot, but it throws up some questions because how was she in Rishi Sunak's government when Rishi Sunak doesn't have any working class friends?
Well, she was a lower down minister. She wasn't a proper.
She wasn't a friend. She wasn't a friend. A friend would have got a higher position.
Yeah,
You're right.
Yeah.
He can maintain that
Who
claim.
did he have in his
She can
government?
maintain hers. Oh, well, they had about 8 of them in a day, didn't they? Didn't, like, someone quit and then someone, like Dean Zahawi was Chancellor for like
that was
5
Boris
minutes.
Johnson.
Oh, you're right. No, that was Boris Johnson.
Yeah. I'm trying to think who Sunak had underneath him. I mean, in his cabinet.
Well.
Who was it? Who was his Chancellor? Oh, Hunt. Jeremy Hunt.
Oh, eventually, yeah, he took over from someone, didn't he?
Yeah. Oh, that was Sajid Javid.
Yeah, Javid was in for...
He quit at some point. He had Suella. Pretty at one point.
Yeah.
James Cleverly.
Yeah. As Foreign Secretary.
Yeah. But what he was doing education or something before.
They've all done a bit of everything, haven't they? That's the problem.
Yeah. I mean, the really worrying thing is when I was listening to the Tory leadership stuff, because James Cleverly's been knocked out of the leadership race.
It's down to 2. The big 2. The big guns.
The worst 2 as well.
Arguably, there's no good 2. But yet, worse does not imply good.
The point I was going to make is how frightening is it that James Cleverly is the most experienced and reasonable choice out of all.
Well, the fact is that Ed Davey was sort of tweeted yesterday or whatever it was that they got knocked out.
Congrats on being leader of the opposition.
Well, yeah, he was like, we're essentially now the opposition. We could become the opposition.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that.
It depends on the political discourse of the next 5 years because at the moment you've got, in my opinion, in government you've got a party who are centre right, and the opposition are far right. So there's no centre-left representation, and the Lib Dems could provide that.
And it feels like the worse things get in the country,
the more right-wing we go.
Yeah.
It's the same in history, though. If you look through history, the rise, even in the early...
Is it just because
in the 20s and 30s...
we have to believe in nationalism?
The rise of fascism...
we've got nothing else.
...was spread throughout the world, and it was all on the back of depression, on the back of the First World War. And not just the First World War, but then you had the market crash in the 20s. But you had... It was all, and it led to this rise in fascism.
Further into disaster rather than actually
helping people.
Some solutions. Because the frightening thing is, like that I saw that tweet to Ed Davey, and I disagreed with it because I actually think, if anything, what we're likely to head towards, especially if Starmer continues as he has thus far. I mean, I think there's a good chance he doesn't see out his first term as Prime Minister. Just based off the first 100 days and how badly it's gone for him. And I don't think that's all down to him, because I think the media in particular, it feels like, have suddenly grown a backbone of standards where they're like, let's look into every little infraction.
The stories that they've been generating against Labour.
Yeah.
you and I both are like, I don't think anyone. There's a lot of people who think I am, but just because I'm anti-Tory. I'm not Labour's biggest supporter by any stretch. Certainly not this version of Labour. But the stories are so desperately clawing at thin air. I mean, the Taylor Swift thing.
Yeah, and it would feel even... It feels so transparent because of how little they gave a shit over everything that was going on, particularly under Boris Johnson when it was at its sleaziest.
Rampant corruption.
You know, so yeah.
And the Taylor Swift thing...
Does he deserve criticism? Absolutely. But
for those who don't know, the Taylor Swift thing is... Taylor Swift got upgraded. So initially the Metropolitan Police... The Metropolitan Police initially said no, and the Borough of London, the mayor's office said no, and then it was upgraded.
Does she merit additional... I think...
However, there's something very important contextually that has been missed out on a lot of the reports, is that just before she played her London dates and got given her escort, there was a terror incident in Vienna.
Right.
At the Taylor Swift Mummy and Me thing, or whatever it was.
Wasn't that before she got there or something?
Yeah, it was before she got there, but it was just before her London dates.
Yeah.
So understandably, the threat level is now higher. Therefore, a police escort is suddenly more justified. And the idea that Yvette Cooper got a ticket...
And I imagine her...
Ed Balls actually got the ticket, and he got the ticket through his media representations rather than through his political associations.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, this can't be what you're clutching at.
So what do you think of the gifts in general, though? Because we haven't discussed it.
I'm never a fan of it.
The thing is, I said to Joe, I'm being honest, I don't like it, but I'm pretty sure if I was that senior a politician, I probably would be taking gifts. But then, it would only be... I mean, you'd like to think you wouldn't sell your soul for tickets to a show.
Hard not to, though. That's the problem. If someone gives you something nice...
And it's hard that even if you have somehow managed to draw that line, taking gifts, that it at least doesn't appear dodgy. Do you know what I mean?
But the difference between Labour and the Tories are that Labour have been declaring everything.
Yeah, and the fact that like the amounts as well, like all of Keir Starmer's put together was something like 160 grand, which was much more than everyone underneath it.
Yeah, but Boris was like
6.4 million.
I was going to say it's about 6 million.
Yeah. So like it's incomparable.
And what do you make about this? About the party in power not having to declare?
No, I think that's mental.
Surely they're the ones who should declare.
Well, yeah, because they're the ones in a position.
That's why it's only coming out now how much they've actually had in gifts. Because it's like,
how can there be an opportunity? Like I've said it before about the Rishi Sunak.
Boris had about 100 grand just on takeaways during lockdown.
If you paid 250 grand to the Conservative Party, you got a monthly meeting with the Prime Minister, and it's like that is mental. Like, but I don't know how you eradicate that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the gift thing at all. I think it just buys you access to political sway.
I find it like a weird argument to defend Labour, though, because it was all coming from one guy. They're like, he's this Lord that's a Labour supporter, and all of it, most of it's coming from this guy, like this Lord Ali guy.
Oh, yes.
And they're like, he's just a big Labour supporter. He doesn't expect anything in return. It's like that. Whether he actually does or not is irrelevant, because one day he will need something.
The fact he's in a position where he can.
Because if he's a rich, powerful man, one day he's going to need something. And who's to say he won't turn to the Labour, because whoever it is, he's supported all of them, and he can just go, yeah, I need this. And what, they're going to say no and turn off the tap? Like, that's just not going to happen. Because we actually don't have a lot of money in our politics, so our politicians are almost like fucking gagging for it. Do you know what I mean?
That's why I don't like it.
No.
It does. The only thing it does is gives you access to political sway, and I'm not a fan of it.
For quite small amounts.
I'm not a fan of it.
Do you know what I mean as well? It's not...
Yeah. But the stories that have been levelled and tried to be levelled against Labour
and I thought the criticism about Starmer and nepotism with his son, because he was able to give his son a place to study where he wasn't going to be disturbed by the media weird as well. Like any father or parent would do whatever they had within their power to make sure.
Yeah, and quite frankly,
and it isn't his son's fault. I mean, his dad's prime minister.
They never would, but the media should be looking at this and going, "Why does someone need protecting from us? Why does someone need protecting from us? Yeah, why does someone need putting away from us?"
Yeah.
So you guys are not very nice.
I find all that quite weird, but I don't like the fact he's taking gifts, but he's been truthful in the sense of...
And also the whole thing about him, this is what really wound me up. When I looked into the Lord Ali, the son staying at the house thing, was what they did was they went, oh, it's he's taken a gift of £20,000 for his son.
No,
It's like,
that's just
no,
how
he
much
didn't.
it's worth.
He just, if you were to arbitrarily value a night stay at his house or a week stay or whatever it is, that's how much he's come up with. But he hasn't actually
paid him a penny.
He hasn't even said, like, look, it's worth this, but I'm going to let you have it for free. It's literally, stay at my house.
Yeah.
I would not. If it was me and you, and I said, come and stay at my house for a week.
Are you about to say you wouldn't bill me?
Well, I would.
Or you at least wouldn't have a value of it on...
Oh my God, did you see this thing online, by the way? No, I'll finish this thing. Right, so that...
I'm staying at your house.
You're staying at my house.
Who
and
am I
then,
bunking with?
But then someone turned... The butler. And then someone turns around and says...
That's a very rude way to speak about your mum.
Help to, No, I'm not going down that route. I love my mum.
So do I.
Careful.
Supple woman.
But then if I turned around and easy...
Oh, no, that was too far. I'm really sorry.
If I turned around and then... Yeah, because she listens.
I know she does. I sort of did it for that because I hoped... your mum's got a sense of humour, so I know she knows.
You better hope.
No, she does.
You better hope she likes you.
No, I've said... She's all right. Do you know what I mean? She gets it.
She better not. All I'm saying.
No, she's not
from the
getting
direction
that.
of this conversation.
No, she's not getting that.
Steady.
Leanne would punch me in the face if I was up to that sort of nonsense,
That's just kinky fun and games. We know that.
Yeah, but it's in private.
It is. This would be in public.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So what?
You were staying at my house.
Yes.
And then someone came along and said, Jake, how much do you think if you were going to rent out a room in your house?
Yeah.
And I went...
How much would it be a month?
I went, I don't know. I'd probably charge, again, I'm just putting a number out there. I'd
Where
probably
you
charge...
live, you could probably charge 900 grand a month.
few hundred grand a wing. But I go, look, I'm going to... I'd say, I don't know, £50 a night. And they go, oh, and how long did Andrew stay there? And I went, 5 nights. They went, interesting. So you've gifted him £250. I'm like, well, no, I let a friend
stay at my
house. That's not... But if they, if they put that on it, and that's exactly what the media did to that story.
The thing is, you are still accepting something from someone.
You are, but it's not in the way that it's being presented.
No, totally. But
come on.
I do think the argument that this guy's not getting anything from it, like, a silly one to make as well, because of course he is.
And I will just, because I will say this quickly. Did you see the thing online? I saw a thing.
No one's giving money to the Prime Minister for nothing. Yeah, but
a woman who tweeted.
Well, no, he's not giving him money, but
she was like, I went round what I thought was a friend's house. I'm now considering them an acquaintance. It was one of those Reddit confessional things. And she went, I went round a friend's house.
Was this you or just someone you read online?
No, because it was an American. And she went, and the woman was like, oh, do you want a drink? I'll make you a G&T, like a cocktail or whatever. And she went, yeah, thanks. And then she said the next morning she literally Venmo'd her a request for $3.70 with a little icon of a cocktail glass.
No.
Yeah.
No. But then that reminds me of, was it Alan Hansen? Like, whenever Match of the Day would film anything at his house, he would bill them for everything. So, like, if the crew had a cup of tea.
Yeah.
All of it. How much? And he broke down, like, he'd worked out the average amount of milk you put in a tea and, like, itemised it down to the... And I was like, that's a bit much, isn't it?
Yeah, but if you've got a couple of people coming around, that's one thing. If you've got a whole crew coming around eating out your
but you're earning a lot of money out of the BBC, do you know what I mean?
But it would be equally, it would be like if you're
not like fucking hosting the royal court, do you know what I mean?
If you had a workman around, like a plumber or whatever,
you'd make him a cup of tea.
And they went, can I have a cup of tea?
Charge him
no, but you went, can I have a cup of tea? And you went, yeah, great. And then he went, great. I'm just going to make a little I'm going to make a couple of little flasks up for my family. Do you see
not
what I mean?
They're doing though, is it?
No, but
how do you know these work?
But there's a difference.
Making flasks.
There's a difference between one
just
person.
Invented a scenario.
I'm the right wing press.
I'm
the right wing press. I'm inventing a scenario to get mad at.
We've said we should work for the Conservatives.
Honestly, can we talk about that? Can we talk about that, please?
What thing was it?
The marketing that we could absolutely help them with.
Yeah, just in general, yeah. They just get it all wrong.
Is this hands down one of the worst videos ever released?
Which video was it?
The winter fuel payment thing.
Oh yes, with the Rolex wearing.
Literally, they've filmed some old people and gone, who have just basically been like, I don't know how I'm going to survive.
Been left destitute by the.
I don't know how I'm going to survive without the winter fuel. Like, what they were basically sort of suggesting that I'm going to have to choose between heating and eating.
Yeah,
they're in massive 4 or 5 bedroom detached houses.
Yeah,
one of them's got a Rolex on. Another one's got like what was it in the background?
There
was something
be
in
a
the
family
background.
heirloom. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like just to play devil's advocate for a second.
But it's like, I mean, I was listening to a bit of Sheila Fogarty last week.
I think it's Fogarty.
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 That's how I say it. It's how John says it.
Who's John?
John Fogarty. Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Fair enough.
I know he might say Fogarty. Do you know, it doesn't
No,
matter.
we're getting
It's
caught
not
in
here
the
nor there.
weeds, I apologise.
This is how my mind
You were
works, but
listening
at a
to
much
Shayla.
slower pace.
Shayla.
Sheila. Good day.
Fucking right.
I was listening to Sheila, and she was doing this phone in about. I've got to turn it on Do Not Disturb again now, because that's going to wind me up otherwise. She's in a phone in about this winter fuel payment thing,
Yeah.
as they all done. I think every LBC presenter in the last 3 weeks has done a phone in about it.
Yeah.
And someone rang in, and she just went, and she was like, "Oh, I'm really sorry that you're going to be," because they were, "I'm missing out on the payment," and she was like, "I'm really sorry about that," and the woman was like, she said, "My kids can't help. They've got their own mortgages, their own bills to pay and stuff, and blah blah blah, because they're all grown up." And then she went, and she went, "Do you mind if I ask you a question?" She said, "What? Where do you live?" And the woman, she was like, "Oh, Birmingham or whatever." And she was like, "No, like, but what kind of property do you live in? Do you own your own house?" And she went, "I do. Yes, I do own my own house." And she went, "Right, and how big is your house?" And the woman went, "Well, I don't see why that." And she's like, "Well, first of all, it's more to heat if you've got a bigger house." But she said, more importantly, she said, if you've got, she said, but just answer how many. And eventually, they were after a lot of back and forth, and was like, 4 bedrooms. And she was okay. And she said, "You've said your kids have moved out." So she said, "Realistically, how much are you using most of those bedrooms?" And she went, "Well," and again, a lot of back and forth. And she was like, and she wouldn't concede anything, but she then kind of turned around and said, "Look," she said, "if you were to sell your 4-bedroom house and buy, say, a 2-bedroom house, which is a big leap," she said, "or if you buy a 3-bedroom house," she said, "the money that you make from that downsizing, could fund all the holes in your finances for quite some time." She said, "Potentially," she said, "obviously there's no guarantees, blah blah blah," and put all that on it. And that's essentially who the Tories picked, though, isn't it, to star in their video? Because there are people but you have to look more in areas where we live, with all due respect.
It's funny, this was a question I had for you, because I've heard the debate being had about, like, should people be selling their houses?
I don't think they should have to. I appreciate that.
And I don't know, I really disagree. Like, I think they chose the wrong people. Like, especially, like, someone should have said, "Mate, take your Rolex off." Do you know what I mean? Like, it didn't help.
Maybe they're trying to appeal literally to a Tory voter who might have a Rolex.
I think fundamentally, for me, one of the things, and especially,
so they can look at the video and go, "I see myself in that."
Like our parents' generation, like, we've all been promised since we were kids: work hard, pay your taxes, you'll have a house, you'll have a family, everything will be hunky dory. To then get to your retirement age, when you're supposed to be able to chill, be comfortable, and be fine, but your government has fucked things up so badly that people now just generally think you should sell what you've worked your life with your partner and to build and to have security, to say, you've now got to sell that just to cover a shortfall, basically.
No, and I
that's
agree,
not going
they
to
shouldn't
last
have
forever.
to.
And how long until they need to sell it again and then downsize? Do you know what
However,
I mean?
they have chosen people that do have assets that they can sell to raise capital.
I think for me, where it ends, like, if someone owns more than one property, then I would think those people should have to sell their assets. But
I don't think you should have to sell your assets. I grant you that. But my point is, they could have picked plenty of people who don't have any assets to sell.
Totally, they could have
chosen
actual
who really are
working
shit up
class.
against it. They don't have any options.
Totally, like people that are in rented accommodation in their elderly years.
Yeah,
Do you know
people
what I mean?
who
There's
are
so
in
many
housing,
people they could have
sheltered
chosen.
housing, and all that stuff.
There's so many people they could have chosen, but I disagree with the argument that these elderly people should just have to. Because the thing is, if that feels like we're just racing to the bottom.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
I do know
Like,
what you mean.
like,
I don't agree.
We're angry at the wrong people.
You and I, maybe the people listening don't. I don't agree with the policy at all.
No,
like you said, we're attacking them. We're once again attacking the people at the bottom.
I feel like they put the threshold too low. Do you know what I mean? Like, people that are comfortable shouldn't get it, but like people that are just getting by shouldn't be having money taken away from them. So yeah, I just think it's sad, and like I don't really understand. It feels like an oxymoron in terms of like Starmer's general stance. It feels like is one of fear of the right wing of the country. But doing this flies in the face of that. But in every other area, he's doing it. But for some reason, has chosen to go for pensioners.
And the thing is, like, for me, the one biggest thing that could and should be bringing Starmer down, as you well know,
is Israel.
And yet, because the media also support Israel, the media will not attack him on it. They will not go after him on it. You will not see any hit pieces based on the fact that he supports a genocidal invasion. You won't see it.
What I don't understand about it is I heard a poll that apparently 56% of Brits are against the arms sales to Israel or anything that goes towards making arms. And it seems a rare situation because like 51% of people voted for Brexit, of those who voted. And we fucking stick to that like it's doctrine. But 56% of people, so a larger majority, are against supporting Israel. Because you can assume if we don't want to sell weapons to them, we're not supporting them.
At least not supporting the genocide.
Yeah. But for some reason, it seems doctrine that, no, under all circumstances, we stand behind Israel.
But once again, it's where the money is, isn't it?
And I found the calls for commemorating the atrocities of October 7th a little bit weird as well.
I did not engage at all.
Look, what I would preface this with, what Hamas did that day was horrific. But I feel like all the discussion around it doesn't matter who I listen to, removes the context of the fact Hamas has been created by Israel's aggression towards Palestine for the last,
They were very
years?
wrong in targeting the civilians, but they fought back. They didn't. They didn't fight. They didn't start a fight. They fought back.
Yeah. If you invade, like we've seen it in terms of how the general Arab population feels towards Britain, because all we've ever done is invade and bomb them. Like you create resistance by being violent.
And I said before,
people.
if everyone I knew was killed or at risk of dying on a daily basis,
did it.
I would fucking. I'll tell you what. If you wiped out Hamas,
if you had nothing else to lose, if you've lost everything, why wouldn't
if I was
you?
a Palestinian in Gaza or the West Bank, and Israel successfully wiped out Hamas, which they'll never do because they consider fucking 4-year-olds to be fucking Hamas agents, or at least potential Hamas agents,
or sympathisers, or.
But if they genuinely they've wiped out Hamas, Hamas are gone. There are no more agents. I'll tell you now, I'm fucking starting Hamas 2.0. Like, and I will. I'll die on that hill. I will stake my claim on that because I will fight for my
everyone. We all know that. Do you know what I mean? Like anyone looking at the situation, if they're being really honest, knows.
Well, not anyone. Yeah, okay. If they're being really honest.
Yeah, like for me, the only way you can disagree with it is if you're being a dogmatic, like I don't know, race baity arsehole. Like you see it. Like there's loads of Jewish people out there and Israeli Jewish people who condemn what their government is doing to
especially the ones that can recognise. It's really sad. There's a friend of mine. I've got a number of Jewish friends, but there's a friend of mine who I consider to be particularly intelligent and bright and brilliant, and yet they can't see past. They cannot see past. They're like they stand with Israel and they're like, but Hamas are bad. I'm like, yeah, but fucking 5-year-old girl isn't Hamas. A hospital and a school isn't Hamas. And even if it was, if that's where they're hiding, so what? You don't get to go and bomb that. And I can't wrap my head around how this person who is so wonderfully brilliant and bright cannot see that.
Yeah. I think I've listened to a lot of stuff and there's definitely a thing
breaks my heart.
Like there is a shared tragedy and scarring of the Jewish people from what has happened to them.
Of course.
Almost since time began. Like they are the most persecuted people on the planet. And even since they've had a homeland, in air quotes, they've always faced pressure and potential aggression from the people that surround them. So there is something to be said of, like, for some Jewish people genuinely feeling afraid, persecuted, or like just constantly at a state of panic, I suppose. Or that seems to be the case. So I can understand that, but to not then be able to, it feels so weird to me that anyone that knows that history can then look at what Israel is doing and just be like, well, we're protecting ourselves.
And also, like, let's just say this, because I had to disengage completely on October 7th because I knew every news outlet would be running the same stories. because that is a conspiracy. I do believe in that they're all on the same fucking
Of
cabal.
course they are. We're
supporting
not
it.
hearing about half of what's going on.
Did you see there was an Al Jazeera ran a news story with a supposed BBC whistleblower
No.
who was pointing out exactly the terminology used, exactly the tactics used by the BBC whenever someone challenged them on it. It's really interesting. I'll try and find the link later after this and show it and send it to you. I think I've got it saved somewhere. But I know, October 7th, about 1,500 victims, give or take, including the hostages and whatever else. Some of who, by the way, were shot by their own fucking military, who just were so desperate to kill Palestinians. They didn't give a shit if a few of their own got in the way.
Yeah.
But about 1,500 people, okay, Israel have a right to self-defence. About 40,000 Palestinian civilians have been killed in the years since. 40,000 civilian deaths.
Yeah.
Even if you say, maybe 20% of that is Hamas, that's still 30,000 civilian deaths. 30,000 civilian deaths and it's 40,000 civilian deaths is not self-defence.
No,
and we need to 100% do away with it because it's laughable. It is actually laughable.
The really
still,
worrying thing is I've seen
self-defence.
stuff from like political commentators that they've heard murmurings that make them concerned we might be sending troops over there, but not for the reason you'd hope we'd be sending troops over there.
No, not to bring peace.
But to support Israel.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what the fuck?
And what made me laugh...
If that happens, I actually think that could be something that would lead to riots, because it's interesting. And it was a question
there was a lot of
ask
trouble back in 2005, 2006, 2004 around it, wasn't there?
What, around Iraq and...
Around Trump sending troops in the Middle East, about engaging
Trump,
in active... Blair and Bush. About engaging. There were a lot of riots then, maybe not riots, but protests.
Yeah. Because one of the interesting things I thought about recently was the fact that I've joked about like we're not like the French, that even though they roll over, they're good at protesting, and we just don't seem to do that. We are doing it with the Israel-Palestine situation, and it does. I think there's a question in there of why are we willing to do that as a population for people thousands of miles away, but we don't do it for ourselves. But we can park that for a second. But like, I think that could genuinely lead to like quite angry riots if we did something like that.
Mm. And it's funny, isn't it, though, that when Iran sent their missiles into Israel, some of which weren't intercepted, and they managed to get, but they didn't. First of all, Iran didn't target civilian bases; they targeted military bases.
Yeah,
some civilian things got hit because they were located near to it. I'm not saying that's right. I'm not defending that. I'm still
but they
condemning
weren't
it.
aiming for them.
But they were not just needlessly aiming at hospitals and schools and things the same way. But when they sent them over, and Israel sent out a tweet that was basically like, these bombs are meant to kill, these missiles are meant to kill, okay? You see this damage? And it's like, okay, so it's taken a year, but Israel are finally ready to admit that firing missiles at civilians is not a good thing.
No.
Obviously, it's different when they fire it into Palestine, the Gaza Strip.
They clearly see them as less than human,
and they are, and it's one thing that's always bothered me, even in a small part of societal life, but obviously on such a massive scale. People that play the victim when there's nothing victimised about them.
Yeah.
And in this conflict, I'm not saying over time, like you said, they're very oppressed, the Jewish people as a whole.
But in this situation,
and I'm not talking about Jewish people either. I'm talking about the Israel state, the state of Israel, the government of Israel. They are not the victims.
Yeah.
They're the oppressors. They're the aggressors. It's so clear and obvious to everyone with a pair of eyes.
But I really don't understand.
Well, not everyone.
I don't I get why the media swings the way it does, but I don't understand why Starmer seems so hell.
There's something we don't know behind the scenes. There's
do you know what I mean?
We do not know.
There's nothing logical to what he's doing. Like, everything is flying against his current position on Israel, and he fucked it up in the beginning.
I'll tell you what I would say if I was a right-wing zealot on this podcast, and we were just proper right-wing, the kind of Tommy Robinson, let's not give a shit if there's any truth behind it stuff.
Start doing the shoulders. Come on, there's lots of... come on, fucking...
I'll tell you what it is, right?
Go on.
Because the government and the media, everyone in this country, right?
Love Boris.
Is owned by the rich Jews.
Fuck.
They own everyone.
You're shitting me.
They obviously want Israel to expand. and destroy the fucking Palestinians, the Arab population. Therefore,
aren't they Muslims?
if they say we support Israel, then all the fucking media and the politicians that they own, they got to say it too.
Cool.
No, but like genuinely,
Explain it
that's
again.
that's the angle I would take if I was a proper right-wing conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
But there is clearly something behind the scenes that we don't know. It's not
Maybe
that.
it's Lord
I'm not
Ali.
saying it's that.
Maybe it's Lord
Yeah, but
Ali.
maybe it is. Maybe it's someone like Lord Ali that actually is
Part of me
sympathetic
wonders,
to Israel.
like, I know there's a lot of big conglomerates that are heavily invested in the state of Israel. So it could be as simple as
The money men.
very rich people are looking after their bottom line.
Very
and
rich people will gain a
they
lot
lean on
by
world
supporting
leaders.
Israel, yeah.
Yeah, it was, that's the only
But
thing I
there's
can
something.
think
There
of.
is something going on there that we're not seeing. For the
Yeah.
fact that the media and not every politician.
But to take this back to where this part of the conversation started, we were talking about Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick.
Yes.
One of the points I was going to make, and I don't know how we ended up on what we did, but I liked it, was that one of the things that concerns me, and I disagree with the Ed Davey tweet that
Yeah, sure.
he's going to become leader of the opposition. He very much could do. I don't know. If he can continue his PR machine the way he has, maybe. But Badenoch or Jenrick is more than capable, and it's a question I have that I'd like to know what you think. And it has gone quiet on this front, but there was a lot of talks that the Tories could try and have either at least an alliance with Reform, if not actually join forces. And I wanted to know what you thought about that.
It's not good, is it? It's confirmation that they've gone as far to the right.
Because what scares the shit out of me about that is I think they'd win.
Yeah, they probably would.
Especially if Starmer continues just not helping people, then within 5 years he's going to lose. Do you know what I mean?
And it's the reason young people have been historically fucked over and pensioners looked after is because they're the ones that go to the polls.
Yeah.
That's why historically
But he's
most governments
kicking the
don't give a
pensioners in
shit
the
about
face,
young
do you know
people.
what I mean? And he's doing nothing for
I know
anyone
Blair
else.
did a lot for young people.
That was another
But
question.
besides Blair's government, literally either side of that, Major and then
Yeah.
Cameron and whatever, they don't give a shit about young people.
No,
Because young people don't vote. It's genuinely as simple as that.
Yeah. So are we sort of saying that young people need to actually engage in politics and vote?
But how
Because
do you get them
otherwise-
to?
Well, that's the thing. I don't know. But
I think we're at a real low point for British politics because I think no side is likeable,
I think part of the problem is
particularly for young people. No side is
We
appealing,
don't-
even a little bit.
really teach it in school. I learned nothing about our political system in school that I can
agree.
remember. And even the terminology, I think we've talked about this before. I didn't know what a Tory was. Do you know what I mean? You have to look into
People are
these.
scared out of politics.
Yeah, and it's a bit like the line in is it The Big Short where Margot Robbie's like they try and use big words to make you think that only they can do what they do. It feels a bit like that it's made to sound more complicated than it is, so that you actually believe these people are capable or trustworthy. But I feel like most people probably grow up with their parents saying shit like, oh, well, they're all as bad as each other, and you know, there's nothing we can do
there ain't
about
no good
any
one.
of it. So by the time you reach an age where you realise actually everything is politics, but you now feel like it's gone to a point where you actually can't do anything about it, so you then just continue to not engage with it.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you change that.
No, I don't know.
But yeah.
But I did take notes of both Badenoch and Bobby J, which he was going by. That was he attempted to get that off the ground, by the way.
He did some crazy...
He had caps with like Bobby J on it.
He did some crazy social media video as part of
I was about to say, so I've got a few notes from what they've done during their campaign. So should we start with Bobby J then?
Go for it.
So yeah, he put out a properly deranged and racist video where he had said special forces were killing rather than capturing terrorists. And then basically the government had to turn around and say, and literally the form are like...
I don't know. I reckon he's probably right. Do you know,
no,
right and wrong. I reckon we kill some and...
Yeah, but you certainly don't say that. And then...
Look, I think there are things a government should and can be able to do that we don't need to know about.
But I
know what
think
I mean?
in terms of abiding by international rules of warfare and
I think killing terrorists is fine. I'm going to
subterfuge
go
or
out on a
whatever.
limb there. I don't feel endangered saying that.
But yeah, anyway, they've they've not been put to a court of law. They've not been
So
put
far,
to the
me and
proper
Bobby J
processes.
are on board.
My favourite thing though that Bobby J did was that he told us that English identity is disappearing.
Yeah.
And there's a fantastic interview, like a podium. He's on a podium on a stage interview with Sky's Matt Barber, and I had to get that right because I want to give the dude the credit because he said, "What do you mean by English identity? Because unless we understand what you mean by English identity, I don't know what you mean is disappearing. What is it that's disappearing? What is English identity?" And he went, and he just kind of like,
white people.
He was like, I think what I think. And then what he said, and this is, so I just want to get this. So he kept talking about history, and he was like, well, history, the British history and whatever. And
He's
was
talking
like,
about empire.
but he
He's
was
talking
like,
about being in charge.
because he was like, oh, immigration is ruining, it's
Yeah.
destroying the English identity. And he was like, okay, but how is immigration destroying history?
He's like, we're still white people.
He said we're still.
I just wish they'd say it.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
But
just fucking say it, Bobby.
Matt Barber was brilliant in holding
People
him to
will
it.
still cheer him. Just say it.
He was brilliant in holding him to it and just saying, but how are immigrants destroying history? And he was just like, and then eventually he said, well, you wouldn't ask. He said, this is Rick says, you wouldn't ask, Scottish and Welsh people about their identity. It's much clearer and stronger, and it's more protected. It's like, yeah, that's because we predominantly have historically fucked them over and robbed them of their own.
Because of that,
so what they're holding on
to
to
is their independence.
He also wants to get migration done.
And you know, it's funny. That's a reoccurring pattern across everywhere we've ever controlled.
It's funny, isn't it?
Almost as if we weren't great at ruling.
So he's gone. He says he wants to get migration done because we don't, we don't talk about it anymore, or get harmed by it. Oh, that's what he did. We want to get migration done so that we're not all talking about migration anymore. It's like, okay, that'll do it. And then he also talked about, because what does getting immigration done? Because we're creating more migrants by sending arms to Israel, who are like disrupting people.
We've talked about this. We're in a fucked situation when it comes to immigration because if anything, we need to ramp it up.
Yeah, and we're creating fucking immigrants everywhere. But also then Jenrick said that he thinks there should be 100,000 immigration cap set by Parliament, and that will help.
Yeah.
That will help the economy. He didn't say per year overall. He didn't say how it would help the economy.
Of course,
he couldn't.
Because
you and I both know that immigrants.
Bobby J's got this.
You and I both know that immigrants are generally a net positive to the UK economy. He couldn't tell any of that.
No, fair enough.
But obviously,
it's unfair of me to ask that question.
He's very, very working class.
Go on, what school did he go to?
No, his very working class counterpart is his nemesis in this, Kemi Badenoch.
Yeah.
She made the claim that some cultures are not as valid as others.
Yeah.
Which is incredibly worrying. Again, that's just open racism. She said that maternity pay's gone too far. And then when people challenged on when people challenged on it, she went, "No, you misunderstood me. That's not what I meant." It's like, well, that's what you said. That is what you said, though.
Yeah. Again, Jake, details.
Meanwhile, by the way, because this was at the conference.
You're being really unfair here.
This was at the conference where she said this, the party conference where she said maternity pay's gone too far. But then about 2 days after she said that, in another hall in the conference, there was and I hate think tanks, but there was a Tory think tank that were having a discussion on how to get women to breed for Britain, because obviously the birthing rate is dropping off
dramatically.
And what will really help them, I think, is taking away their maternity pay.
Making it more difficult
I think
for
would
them to have
definitely help.
children.
She said there's too many podcasts.
Look, if we really want to get really conspiratorial for a second, I think it's deliberate. I think they want the birth rate to drop. I think they want less commoners. No,
fewer commoners.
I think they want fewer commoners.
Thank you.
They need to have some of us.
I just want to make sure that
a workforce.
I want to make sure that when the cold comes, you survive. So I'm helping you grammatically. I just want to make sure you appear posher than you are.
Oh, well, that ship sailed, mate. But yeah, I think they want people dead. I think or having less children. I genuinely think
fewer children. But then, so after she came out and she said, "No, you misunderstood me about the maternity pay." Yeah. She then said, "I'll tell you what, though, minimum wage is a bad thing." And what she quoted was, because a cafe down by her closed because it can't afford to pay its staff the minimum wage. You're like, that sounds like your cafe was not sustainable. And therefore,
it wasn't doing
in the
well.
conservative world of a free market, that's a business doomed to fail.
Yeah.
Under your own ideals, under your own conservative ideals, that's a business that's just not going to survive. That's the way it is.
I have one really major issue with...
So there you go. So if we do what Nigel Farage now wants us to do, his next big move, and we leave the EHCR, the ECHR...
Which they really want to do, by the way.
All that's going to do is it means they can turn around and take away our minimum wages. That means they can take away our holiday pay, our maternity pay, all of that stuff, our statutory sick pay.
Slaves in all but
gone.
name.
Gone.
They'd
That's
be
all
back
they're
to
going to
work,
do. Yeah,
houses
100%.
and kids up chimneys. Right.
Yeah, minimum age to work and work certain jobs, gone.
Mm-hmm.
Gone.
Yeah. The thing that scares me about, and I really don't like about people like Hemi Badenoch, and I want to be really careful how I do this, because it's the same issue I have with people like Suella Braverman and Priti Patel, is they belong to marginalised groups, women and women of colour. And what scares me about someone who, as one of those or two of those minority groups, to speak out against your own people, against the own rights of your own people, and like especially Priti Patel and Suella Braverman in terms of
they're vile
both
people.
come from families of immigrants, but to then hate immigrants, or to at least pretend you hate immigrants if we're being optimistic, and then with Kemi Badenoch to speak against women's rights, you're just like, for me, I look at them and I can see the barefaced ambition in doing that, the ruthless attempt at power.
Pushing yourself up at the
Kemi
expense of everyone
Badenoch
else.
is very successfully pushing her way to power. Do you know what I mean? And I actually think she'll probably win, because I think she at least appears slightly more credible than Bobby J. And like, I remember the first time I ever heard her like being interviewed, and I was like, oh shit, you know, as a Tory goes, she sounds
I think
alright.
you said that to me,
and
then
I
I
think
was
I even
like,
said
I
it
don't.
on the pod.
And I said,
and you were like,
I was
I'd
no.
hold off on praising her if I
wait.
was you. And then very quickly, as her barefaced ambition shows.
Because she will just say the most unhinged things.
Yeah.
She's got a history of it.
Because, I mean, like, look, people have proven they cheer for these sort of people. A certain section of
And
people
we've
anyway.
fostered an environment in this country. We've fostered a culture
The
where
media has.
media has, but a leading politician, someone who could potentially be prime minister in the next 5 years, and who is fighting for that right, who's fighting for that honour, has just literally stood up in front of everyone, the whole world, and said some cultures aren't as valid as others.
Yeah.
Excuse me? That's so openly, brazenly racist.
Yeah.
And yet,
But
and
she's
also,
shielded by the fact
more
she
than
comes
anything,
from a minority group.
exactly, I was going to say her supporters more than anyone, the people on the far right, not the people on the centre right.
Yeah.
As much as I disagree with them politically, I don't necessarily agree with most people on the centre right morally.
Yeah.
In as big a way, but the people on the far right, it's like they will genuinely look at that and go, they are the people that will go, she can't be racist, she's black. She can't be misogynistic, she's a woman. And it's like, she's literally just told you cultures aren't as valid as others, and told you that maternity pay is no good.
Yeah.
What other way is that not attacking the rights of the right to work of women? And
depending on
all
how the
immigrants.
leadership race goes, she could potentially be in line to become prime
No,
minister.
so she could be prime minister in 5 years' time, 6 years' time.
Yeah.
And yet she's just we in a position where she says those things.
I feel like
and
Starmer's going to do everything in his power to make that happen.
Yeah, feels like it. Feels like it.
Like, I wish there. Like, I keep going. Like, part of me wants to go, let's wait to the budget. Like, what? No, because I know nothing's coming in the budget. Nothing. Like, the fact they're making
Nothing
us
good.
wait for a budget. Do you know what I mean?
Nothing
Like,
good for us.
After 14 years of decline, Labour should have been... Because the thing is, they even have a consultation period pre-taking over. Like, before the election even starts, they get in contact with the civil service. They go, look, this is the shit we're going to want to do. You need to work out how to make that happen. That goes on every time. And then it means as soon as the election result is announced, that shit starts happening. Nothing's happening. So, like, I can't sit here naively and go...
Not good for us.
Oh, yeah, let's just wait for Rachel to surprise us at the end of the month or whenever it is, because it's not coming. Like, what I'll be shocked by is if they don't fuck us completely.
Who was it who said... Oh, no, it was Roy Hodgson, wasn't it? At Palace. It wasn't a political thing, it was a football thing. We have a country, to paraphrase Roy Hodgson when he lashed out in his miserable years towards the end at Palace fans. We as a country have had it too good for too long, and we need to lower our expectations.
Yeah. And
that's what Rachel Reeves is going to tell us, more or less.
Yeah.
Even if she doesn't say it with words, she's going to say it with her actions. If you thought it was
bad before, you just fucking wait.
But can we talk about Sir Keir, the toolmaker's son?
Yeah. Did you know his mum was a nurse?
Literally never heard that.
Yeah.
That's come as quite a shock.
Yeah.
I thought I had the knowledge with his dad.
You want to talk to me about what he's given away?
He's given away.
Give it away now.
Yeah, let's not get ourselves...
Don't start talking about fucking
copyright
again after what you've done.
Do you know what? I was saying this the other day. I was like, do you know what? I live for the chaos. I love chaos.
Is this you or Keir?
I choose chaos. No, Keir is Keir is a traitor to the British Empire because we have lost. Can we have a rippers? Can we have a rippers?
In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti.
They're part of Mauritius.
The Chagos Islands. They're gone. I mean, look. Ignore the fact that one of the biggest people moaning at Keir Starmer was James Cleverly attacking him for giving away the Chagos Islands when the talks were started under him as Foreign Secretary.
Yeah.
Ignore that.
Again, Jake, details.
Ignore
mate.
that.
Ignore that.
Ignore that.
Why did you even bring it up?
Do you know what it means, though, sadly? Because for those who don't know, and many people who, even the ones who got really upset about this, don't know where they are. They're in the Indian Ocean. By Mauritius, funnily enough, as it happens. And what's happened is there is now a part of the British Empire where there will be no sun. There used to be that the sun would never set on the British Empire. It's no longer the case.
It's not part of the British Empire.
It's no longer
There is
the
actually,
case.
I was listening to something today because I didn't know what the fuck was going on with these Chagos Islands. Or
I've looked it up.
Chagos.
I've looked it up.
We basically just decided one day we like this place and took it.
Not quite.
But we also turfed shitloads of people out of there.
Very much so.
Gave land to America. I think they've
Very
got a
much so.
military base there now.
Yes.
And we've let some people go back there. We also didn't consult the people about giving them back to Mauritius. And the people didn't want to go back to Mauritius. They didn't necessarily want to be a part of us, but wouldn't have necessarily chosen to be part of Mauritius.
Yes. So at the end of the 1600s, early 1700s, us, the French, the Dutch, we were all expanding. We were all going out all over the place and capturing lands and making money and capturing slaves. Ignore that bit. We didn't.
That all started with Christopher Columbus, by the way.
Yeah, no, it's shocking, isn't it?
Yeah, when I found out
It's
about
shocking.
that bastard, he's fucking celebrating.
So slave trade, right? And the French captured Mauritius and many of the islands in 1814, when Napoleon was defeated, even after his brief reprieve.
We took some, did we?
At the Congress of Vienna, because France had conquered most of Europe, and the borders needed redrawing. The main ones were us, Austria, and Russia, and Prussia at the time, I guess.
So we split it up amongst
We split it up and we said we're having that bit.
Yeah.
So from 1815, we had the Chagos Islands. In 1966, we signed a 50-year lease with the Americans that they can have whatever they wanted. And in 1971, they put up a military base. They now don't want the military base. So that expired in 2016, but luckily the lease was extended till about 2032. So funnily enough, as part of the deal to give Mauritius the Chagos Islands back, they have to sign a 99-year lease with America to let them keep the military base on the southern island.
And the people that live there would like to live on the island.
And we turfed all of the people who lived on the islands out of the islands.
Yeah.
We refused them even UK status for most of them. They weren't even allowed to be British.
Details, Jake. Come on, let's not talk about that. It was our land.
Mauritius in 2018 challenged. They took the UK to the International Court of Justice.
I bet we won.
We lost. They challenged us and said we'd turf people out illegally and wrongly, and that those people should be allowed to return. And that.
Oh, sorry.
And then
the
International Court of Justice went, yeah, no, they're right. You need to let people move back,
and
you should really give. And we told them to go fuck themselves. British pride. British pride.
Never been more proud to be British.
Rule Britannia.
For those listening, what you missed was me and Jake just stood up and applauded.
Britannia rules the waves. I think personally what happened was, and this is my own personal theory, make of it what you will.
Yeah.
I think what happened was the Queen said, "Fuck off," and now that now that Charles is in charge, he just sort of went, "I don't care."
Yeah.
What islands? But the Queen was like, "That's my empire."
What I love, though, what's come out of all of this is Keir Starmer has basically admitted that if it wasn't for the fact his uncle was in a submarine at the Falklands, he would give the Falklands.
Well, do you know what's been shocking about that? Is I read an article that said, because he said, "Oh, my uncle is sunk on a
Nearly.
He nearly sunk on a submarine that was hit by a torpedo."
Yeah.
Apparently, no English subs were hit by torpedoes during the Falklands conflict.
Of course not.
That's according to a report I read.
His uncle might have been to the Falklands once on holiday, and that's what he went with.
Yeah.
And he's
That's
been
it.
there. Like, do you know what I mean? It could have got dicey. He was there 10 years after the...
Yeah. It
Do you
was
know what I
close.
mean?
It was
Yeah,
really
He
close.
saw a submarine that
It was really.
happened
He
to
nearly
pass-
got knocked over by a penguin.
Yeah.
It was really dicey.
Yeah. But, like, look, I get he
Local
has to-
taxi man
he-
charged him 20
thing
pesos for a fucking
the
trip from the
Falklands
airport,
are a really...
robbery.
I don't know that much
Dodgy.
about the Falklands, but I know it is particularly for a lot of northern families because they lost a lot of men in the Falklands for like what were we fighting? I couldn't tell you what we were fighting for.
little island with some penguins on it.
Do you know what I mean? Like, but because we've lost lives for that place, there's no circumstances in which
There's
we
obligation
could,
to keep it.
Do you know what I mean?
To
Like,
honour their lives. To mean they
especially within,
didn't die
like,
for nothing.
living memory. Do you know what I mean? So like,
Otherwise, they'd have died for nothing.
I'd rather he just said that. Like, there's far too much blood been lost for me to ever accept losing the Falklands. That would have sounded amazing. Like, imagine like fucking pounding the table. I will under no circumstance. Do you know what I mean? We'd be applauding him. Like,
I
fucking
heard
go on.
one of the baddest lines the other day. I read it, and I can't remember whether it was a fictional thing
The people would
or
love Keir Starmer
an
doing
account of a real life thing. But it was basically someone being interrogated, trying to find their co-conspirators,
that. Yeah.
and they were like, and he just sort of, the guy just sort of he got him real close. He went, "All right, can you keep a secret?" And the guy went, "Yeah," and he went, "Yeah, so can I," and then just died after that. And I was like, that's a fucking bad line to end on.
Yeah.
If Keir had said something like that, we'd all been.
Yeah.
I'd overlook the Israel.
Do you
No,
know
I wouldn't.
something?
But I would, you know.
I'm going to change the subject slightly because like rousing speeches and like I was watching before the podcast, literally day of recording, it got released a couple of hours before the podcast. Boris Johnson went on Diary of a CEO, and like as you start watching it, they give you the fluffy clip bits where they're like, and it looks like he's giving him a hard time.
Can I just, sorry, it just.
Did you just smack your hand?
No,
or something?
acoustically it would sound like I was really excited because I was like, oh, fuck. Like, yeah, gotcha. I actually just got my fingers stuck in the microphone whole stand.
Boom.
And when I pulled them out, it caused me a little bit of pain. So sorry.
I thought you were an expert sticking your fingers in
I was
tight
fingering the
places.
hole. It's not wet, that's the problem.
Nah, it wasn't
That's the
lubricated.
problem. It's
Do you
not
need me to
properly
spit on your
lubricated.
fingers for
Yes,
you?
please. And then I'll have another go.
Huck
Up to it. Spat on that back.
Look, mate, we're fucking experts at this podcasting game. What were we talking about?
It's rousing speeches.
Yeah, so like Boris Johnson was on Diary CEO, and as you start watching it, they give you like some of the highlights, and it looks like he's giving him a hard time. So I was like, do you know what? I'm going to sit.
I bet he
through it.
fucking doesn't, though. He never does.
The problem is with that because it's an interview where it's a bit more in depth than you'll see Boris Johnson do. And like, I'll give Stephen Bartlett's due because I quite like him. I've heard that he's not necessarily the best person to work with. It's one of the reasons why he had to sell his stake in the biggest company he's been a part of and all that sort of thing. But I've not seen anything of him. Not that my judge of character with famous people is the best.
Fair.
But I've not seen anything of him that, and I quite like him. And he gives it a go. Like, he asks him quite hard questions and he tries to push on him, but it's Boris. He just waffles until...
Yeah, and they get away with it.
And like, but whenever I watch someone from like Eton or that sort of upbringing, their emotional vocabulary is non-existent. I almost feel sorry for them when I watch them try and like, he's asking him, he had quite a rough upbringing from the sounds of things, like problems in the family home and things like that. But he couldn't like vocalise it. He would have to sort of, like a politician does, sort of sides. He would try for a second and then would find a way to sort of brush it off or distract
Yeah.
it, but you could tell he almost wanted to be vulnerable, but just didn't have.
I don't believe that for a second.
No, you're probably quite right. And like through it, like when you're watching those bits, you're going, oh, there is a human being there.
There
like,
is
do you know
not.
what I mean?
There is not.
But
I think he wants you to think that.
No, 100%.
Yeah.
And then I remind myself of everything he did while he was in power. Like, but Stephen Bartlett isn't the person who should be doing that interview. Do you know? But he's not going to sit down with.
No, he doesn't want a hard time.
Do you know what I mean?
That's why he agrees to interviews, because just topically, that's why he agrees to interviews with people like Laura Kunzberg, who don't give him a hard time, who is his friend, who this week,
I think
last
he's one
week,
of the most overrated journalists.
well,
on
who
the
last
planet,
week,
by
did
the
you
way.
see the fact she lost her interview with Boris
She
Johnson?
sent him the briefing
She sent
notes,
him the
didn't
briefing
she?
notes, which, let's be fair,
And
he would have had anyway. We know she'd have sent him that. She just got caught.
Yeah. She tried to put her hands up afterwards and say it's just incredibly disappointing. Do you know what I mean?
But the thing is, like, the amount of journalists that stepped up
I don't
or
think
media
anyone really
presenters.
holds her to a higher standard anyway,
No,
to
but
be honest with you.
no, 100% not. But the amount of presenters and journalists who stepped up afterwards, after she made that statement and went, "I'll do it. I'll take your slot. I don't need any fucking prep time. I know what I'm going to ask this prick because I've been wanting to ask him for the last 3 or 4 years, and he won't interview with me," kind of thing.
No.
So there were like some really big names.
Would you
stepping
do
up.
an interview with him?
Yeah.
But the thing is, I think because they'll ask for like what sort of questions are you going to ask. The interview doesn't happen, does it? Because
No.
we're going to want to talk to him about, like, and he does. He talks to him about lockdown and all sorts of things. Whenever he tries to push back on him, again, he's experienced at just waffling his way out of it. Do you know
But
what I
I
mean?
do, and this does sound arrogant. I know this, but I believe that we, and I'm not just including myself in this, I believe that we would have a way of twisting his non-answer into an answer.
I'd like to hope so. I mean, I think the one thing I'd give him credit for, it didn't feel like in any way he was intimidated by the fact he was Boris Johnson, ex-Prime Minister,
Yeah.
and he didn't seem fazed by that at all. Whereas I think there's a potential I might, not in terms of like a fangirly way, but just in terms of
This is a pro we're dealing with here.
this is a big guy, like.
Yeah, damn right he is. All them free takeaways.
But yeah, like I was texting Joe about it before the pod, and I was like, and then I reminded myself he's a wife-beating philanderer who, like, and the frustrating thing, like when you listen to Boris Johnson, I think we've sort of said it before, like he's got all the attributes that if he wasn't a scumbag, he could be an effective leader, but he's so, I don't know,
Self-serving.
self-serving, egotistical,
Lack of morals. He's unremorseful.
Yeah, like he has an ego and he has a penis which he likes to use. Do you know what I mean?
But
like,
he's absolutely...
I also found it hilarious he talked about number 10 looking like a crack den.
Yeah.
When there wasn't a surface in number 10 when he was Prime Minister
That didn't have crack on it. Yeah, it didn't have cocaine on it.
So yeah, when you were there, it actually was a literal crack den.
Looked like a coke den, smelt like a coke den. Smelt like a coke den. Yeah, no, I'd like to think we both
I
give
now
him a
know
hard
how
time.
many children he has though.
Oh yeah, I saw him pushed
He
on
has
that.
8. And he got asked about Charlotte Owen. They literally spent 2 seconds talking about Charlotte Owen. He was like, "Is she your daughter?" No. Did you sleep with her? No. And then moved on.
Yeah.
But I find like ultimately, I mean, like he's pushing his book at the moment, which is why he's doing the rounds. But like I feel like the reason he gets away with everything he did to a degree is because Liz Truss came immediately afterwards, and people just seem to forget about.
Well, while we're on Boris Johnson, can you play the clip I sent you?
Yep.
Let's talk about Brexit. Is, as you say, a defining part of your legacy. It was chaos afterwards, as you acknowledge in your book. And you blame a lot of people for that. You blame David Cameron, you blame Theresa May later, you blame the EU. The one person you don't
Sound
blame is
familiar?
you, and people will find that amazing. You told us that we should do this, and you hadn't devoted any serious thought to what came next.
Come on. So I wanted to win an argument, and I believed in freedom, and I believed that our country had a great, great future.
But you were the leader.
doing
You were
things
leading us into this.
What we expected, and what I think, everybody expected, was that the Cameron government, having called a referendum a yes/no choice for the people, Leave Remain choice for the people, would bring forward a white paper.
Why? He didn't believe it. What made you possibly think that would be the outcome?
every other European leader, when they hold referendums, decides, once the people have voted, decides what to do and stays in office. So it's not normal for the Prime Minister, having asked for a referendum vote, suddenly to evacuate the stage.
He wanted to win an argument. And the Time Old Classic...
Does that shock you, though? Like, it doesn't particularly shock me.
On the Time Old Classic, it was someone else's fault. I made a mess, and I thought reasonably that someone else would be there to clear it up. So when I made the mess, I had no idea that I would be the one that would have to clear it up. I had no idea that I would have to be the one to face the consequences of my own actions. I thought someone else was going to face the consequences of my actions.
You're not going to like this. I agree with him to a degree. Not that he has no responsibility, but I agree with what he's saying about David Cameron, that he imposed this on the country to shore up his control, what he thought would shore up his control of the country and the party and everything like that, and then immediately fucked off when it didn't go the way he wanted it to. And I do think Stephen Bartlett tried to press him on this, where he was like, but you were the leader of the campaign to leave. And he read him a letter that hadn't been published, that he'd written to, basically, and he tried to play it off as, I wrote it as a counter-argument after my leave article. But he read it out to him, and it was like, why the fuck did you clearly understand the choice you were making, but you chose to go after power and position rather than...
Yeah.
And he even, because he knew the first person taking over would... like hit a brick wall and it wouldn't go well for them.
We said that at the time, didn't we? We weren't doing podcasts back then, way back in 2015. But we both said he's deliberately not put himself forward because he knows
it's going to be shit.
Whoever steps in. And that's why I've always said, as much as I disagree with her on almost every single political stance,
she was fucked to begin with.
I have and people will hate me for this, but see, people on the left hate me for this. I've had many discussions where they're like, you can't say that. I do have a sense of respect for Theresa May because she knew it was a poison chalice. She knew she was fucked from the minute she stepped into the role, but she did it anyway. Yeah,
because she wanted the position of Prime Minister, just to say she'd been...
Maybe.
That can only... Because otherwise, why would you? What she would say is, my country called, I answered. That would probably be the bullshit she came out.
But all I will say is...
She just wanted the job
everyone
title.
else would have done exactly what Boris Johnson did. Step back and gone, now is not the time.
Yeah.
I need someone to fuck it up first, and then I can come into the hero.
I think he's going to go on a tour of
let's hope he doesn't have to
humanising himself, and
let's hope he doesn't have to go on a tour through the EU because he's now made that more difficult.
I think what he'll be hoping for is that Badenoch most likely will go too far to the right and scare people, and then the party will oust her, and that like Boris would have rehabilitated himself enough in that length of time.
And he comes back and serves some senior cabinet position for the rest of his tenure or something,
or just becomes the next leader. For somehow wins a by-election or something, and
there's many dangers.
I think that's what he sees in his head. I'm not saying that's necessarily what's going to happen, but
I think that interview is damning. That clip is damning.
Look, everything about Boris Johnson is damning.
But him just saying, I didn't really... What he said in that interview, combined with the letter that you in the Stephen Bartlett interview, so he said, I didn't really want Brexit. I just wanted to step
David
up,
Cameron in his place,
win an argument, and then he was going to have to deal with the mess.
Yeah.
Which basically means he knew there was a mess.
Yeah.
He knew there was going to be an absolute...
Yeah, he tried arguing that there's still loads of opportunities with him. Do you know what I mean? All that usual bollocks and... Yeah, it's just... And I wish we didn't still have to talk about fucking Boris Johnson. I remember when he finally went, we were like, my God, we're not going to have to talk about him for a while. And I don't feel like he's like a looming figure over politics, isn't he?
Well, his legacy is arguably one of the greatest in the country in terms of its impact.
Yeah, in terms of where he's driven standards down to. So anything above what he did, we're like, it's not Boris Johnson.
Like literally pre-Boris, even in a May government, if someone got caught in some kind of scandal...
Amber Rudd, she wasn't even a scandal. She, one of her aides gave her the wrong information and she misled Parliament.
And they resigned.
Yeah.
That was the standard going back through our childhood, beyond.
Yeah. It would have been 6 years
Johnson
ago.
comes in.
No, not even 6 years ago.
Him and many of his cabinet ministers lied at the dispatch box. They did so much worse, got caught in so many
Look at how long
scandals.
it took him to get rid of Dominic Cummings.
Yeah, well,
Like-
look at Matt Hancock clung on for a while.
He still fucking defends that man, by the way. Oh, he's very energetic. He did a good job.
And
That's
and
what-
I'm trying to think what was one of the other big the scandal. Oh, the fact that it came out that he'd basically promoted Pincher by name, Pincher by nature. I mean, that's
Yeah.
trivializing sexual assault and then rewarding sexual assault. And in like I said, in May and previously,
Yeah.
that would have been resignable, condemnable. But now you just go,
Yeah.
I didn't know. And it's like, but you did know. Here's proof that you knew. No, I didn't know.
Yeah.
And the media, there's nothing to respond. I don't know. Yeah, he's dragged
He
standards
still
down so far.
defends his role in all the lockdown parties and all of that stuff. He still maintains no rules were broken and all of that. Yeah.
He's trying to take us all for fools.
Is it not a frightening thought, though, that in our lifetime, the most successful Prime Minister is Tony Blair?
Define successful.
Well, in terms of, like, had a positive impact on the country.
Yeah, the war criminal Tony Blair.
Yeah, no, but that's my point,
I know that's
mate.
your. No, I know.
That's
I know.
my point.
I know.
That, like, but he did good shit as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, say what you want about what he
Yeah.
felt about the Middle
The
East and what he
grants
did
to
out
the
there.
grants to working class people and students.
Angela Rayner
the-
would not be deputy PM if Tony Blair doesn't.
the
Do you know what I
the
mean?
introduction of minimum wage, the heavy investment into both the NHS and the education
Yeah.
system. I mean, when you look at the NHS waiting times and satisfaction times were at their lowest
Like, in their history, I think.
in
when
their history.
when he was
Just before the Tories took over.
Yeah,
Like literally, Cameron comes in and they start a steady decline, or
Yeah.
sorry, rather
increase.
a steady climb in waiting
Yeah.
times. It's
But, like, that's like when we I think we've said it before, that, like, when you're wishing for a Tony Blair government,
Well,
what's wrong with
I
the country?
sort of almost hoped that Keir Starmer would, and we knew it would never going to happen.
But that's because the media span, and I feel sorry for Gordon Brown in this, because he gets blamed for the 2008 financial crash for some reason. But that happened when Gordon Brown's Prime Minister, and that fucks the country. But that seems to be completely removed from the and that gets put on Labour in terms of, the country went downhill financially at the end of Labour. It's like, yeah, but every government around the world did.
Also, and I'll say this, like, because under the Blair Brown government, they had, I mean, look, they were, I'm about to mention some truly despicable people who are genuinely not that nice, not that good, had many, many flaws. But now, these politicians, they're so out of touch. You used to have people like John Prescott who'd just down a pint and swing a punch at someone. That was a proper politician. That was a proper working man's politician. Do you know? I mean, if someone throws an egg at you, you throw one back. You launch yourself
Do
at
you know
them.
he tried to defend knocking over that Asian kid?
Did he?
Do you know what he said?
No, go on.
Because
Please,
Stephen, you just
please.
made me think of it. Stephen Bartlett
Please.
brought it up, and he
Do you mean in the rugby
and he
thing?
was like, yeah.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, I tell you, that kid was older than he looked.
Everyone said I knocked over a 10-year-old.
But
Let
he
me tell you, he was at
genuinely
least
said that,
he was
and
at
I
least
was like,
12. You know, I'm like-
But anyway, sorry.
no, but like when you look at now the crop, like we've said, Angela Rayner is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
And like for me, I know the other one I'm a relatively big supporter of is like Jess Phillips, and who's the one they're threatening to remove the whip from her. Oh my god!
Saeed? No, not Saeed.
No, but it is an Asian lady, or a lady of Asian descent. Her, I can't think of her name. It's going
Anyway.
to really bug me, but her as well, I quite like. But when you think back and you think to that crop, and you're like, oh, they had some, all right, they had some toffs as well, but they had some proper
Politicians.
politicians who actually they could
Cared
go.
about people.
They knew how much bread cost.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? They knew how much a pint of milk cost.
Yeah.
And like I said, if someone threw a shoe at them, they'd fine twat them back. That's
Yeah.
the rules of the
Call
streets.
them a bigoted bitch. Do you know what I
Bigoted
mean?
bitch, yeah, call them plebs.
Can
That's
you
the way
believe
the
he
world
got
works.
in trouble for that? She was a bigoted bitch.
Yeah.
And he called her it in private, by the way. He didn't call her it to her face.
No. Okay, look, let's look at this for a second. He called someone who was expressing quite bigoted views.
Yeah.
He called, okay, bitch might have been a bit far, but he called her,
she was a bigoted bitch.
but he called her a bigoted bitch in private, and
Yeah,
the mic
yeah.
caught it.
He was
Kemi
hot
Badenoch's just stood up and told us some cultures aren't as valid as others, and she's being cheered off to the side of the stage and potentially voted in as the next leader of the opposition. How far have we come?
And we're cool with it.
Since Johnson.
And we're cool with it.
Since Johnson.
Yeah.
He dropped the standards that much, and it's mad.
So so like, look, I get when I see these interviews, like when you start having the moment of like, oh, is he like you? I then go, no. This is the guy that fucked the country.
Let the bodies pile high.
He bent us all over and laughed. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Let the bodies.
Let the bodies pile high.
Yeah.
I just wanted to win an argument.
Yeah.
The biggest
That's what he
economic
thinks of the
disaster,
people.
the biggest economic self-sabotage in the history of any country,
Yeah.
and he just wanted to win an argument.
Yeah.
And let the bodies pile high. He was happy to let people die while he had a drink and a cake.
And you can tell
Die alone.
he still doesn't think
He's not
that
remorseful.
lockdowns were a good idea either.
No, he doesn't. He did not want to do that. He very much still thinks herd immunity was the way to go.
Yeah.
Just let everyone get it. Forget about the old and the
That's
ill.
what I mean, it's sort of. But yeah.
Forget about the old and the sick. That's something we're going to need to explore your views on that.
They're a sponge on our society, mate.
I want their Rolexes.
Just give me an
If I-
immigrant over an old
I will
person any day.
I will grab it off their cold, dead hands. I just need to make them cold and dead.
Yeah. Exactly. I'll take the keys to their house. No. But anyway. I didn't expect us to talk about politics for this long. Lil sent me a podcast idea and I was going to get us to...
Okay. Is
we
it too
haven't
late
got
now?
enough time now, so we'll save it for
Next
another
week.
episode. Yeah. But one of the last things I wanted to talk about was Alistair Campbell, because when I was thinking about Tony Blair, like I actually quite like Alistair Campbell. Like he's a proper lefty. He understands politics and he's good.
Probably
to listen
understands
to,
politics too much.
Yeah, but like one of the greatest
he's supposedly-
TV characters of all time is based
I was
off
about
of
to say he's
Alistair
the basis of Malcolm Tucker,
Yeah, like.
who's phenomenal. By the way, Peter Capaldi
Like,
plays that.
but
I'm a
he's
big fan of
also-
Armando Iannucci, but he
Oh,
plays that
100%.
superbly, Peter Capaldi.
Oh, fantastic. But like has also raised a comedian and a female comedian. He fully supports her. She talks about quite out there stuff. And I didn't even realise his daughter...
Didn't know that.
No, she was on a podcast I liked
Lucy
recently.
Campbell?
No, Grace Campbell.
Grace Campbell. Oh no, I do know her.
Yeah, she's Alistair Campbell's daughter.
Okay, yeah. Fuck, well, yeah, I
and he's
didn't know
good,
that.
and like she took,
Nepotism. Goddamn nepotism.
No, and she
No,
talks
yeah.
about it. She talks about it.
But yeah, no.
Did you know Lily Collins was Phil Collins' daughter, by the way?
No, I did not.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you know what though? I've had this discussion with someone recently. Is that the amount of times?
They're doing the O2 Arena, mate.
The amount
The
of
rest is
times
politics.
I found out someone in the industry, whether it's the radio industry or the print industry or the TV industry or film, and you think, wow, good for them, and then you find out their parents were someone,
Yeah, well, even Daniel
or they went to a
Radcliffe.
proper school, and you're like,
Daniel Radcliffe,
fuck
his parents
me.
are producers in the in the movie industry. So,
Yeah.
and he got the role because he was at a theatre one night with his mum and dad, and they ran into the guy making the movie, and he was like, "Oh, your son looks a bit like Harry Potter," and the next thing you know, he's Harry Potter.
Oh no, but anyway, sorry. The rest is politics because that's him and Rory Stewart, isn't it?
I quite like it sometimes. I don't listen to it all the time, but what I like about
It's
it,
an interesting crossover because what it is it's two relatively. I know I've said he's quite gruff and that. But it's two relatively affable politicians,
yeah,
even though they
'cause-
come from right and left.
Because Rory Stewart is what I would consider an actual conservative, like a reasonable conservative.
Centre right.
Yeah, like, but he's he's a bit of a weird guy. Like when he was running for mayor of London, he wanted to sleep in people's living rooms on their floors.
Yeah.
Like definitely out there, but he's also travelled the world. Like he's seen the world, he's seen poverty. Like I feel like he gets it, and you can listen to him. And I don't agree with everything
I'll
he
tell
says,
you what.
but
Go on.
but I like their podcast. I think it's a really good example of how people on quite opposite ends of the spectrum sometimes can discuss things.
That's
and
why I wanted to let you say
not just get on well, but like they're touring the country doing arenas, the
Because-
O2 Arena.
a quality that they both possess that very few people in politics, and I appreciate they're not both still in politics, but very few people, not properly anyway,
Yeah.
very few people possess in politics these days, in British politics, is there's such division and such polarising, topics. Everything is like you've got to be on this side or that side.
Yeah.
You're for or against. There's no, little bit of this, little bit of that. they both actually are willing to just go, actually, I don't mind the guy on the other side of the table. They'll both sit there, particularly Rory Stewart will sit there and go, I don't hate the guy across the table from me. We just have different ideas of how to get things done. But we both
even if they hate him as well. I've seen them interview
but you go,
people
we
that
both
really
want,
don't like Rory.
You go, we both want to better our country. Obviously, not everyone wants that. We know that in politics. But, his general view is we both want the same thing. We just differ on how to get there. But I don't hate the guy because he has different views.
No.
And Alistair Campbell has a bit the same, where he's like, I don't hate the right. I just don't agree with how they're doing things.
No.
And he probably disagrees a bit more
And like
vociferously than
you can
than
take
Rory
them
Stewart
both
would,
seriously. They both have experience with, like, Alistair Campbell was he was the mastermind of New Labour. Like, he got them to power. He was the power behind the power. So, like, there's also implications there of then his role within what Tony Blair got up to.
Well, there was
it's impossible. Like, I find it difficult to believe he didn't know.
There's many sides of the story, but I don't. Apparently,
he's had to face inquiries and shit, hasn't he?
But apparently, the story was that Alistair Campbell, even though he knew what it would bring, he was supposedly very much against Tony Blair meeting Rupert Murdoch.
Right.
Apparently, he was like, I don't.
He's going to own.
Basically, even though I know the good it could do, and that it would almost guarantee us, it would guarantee us the election.
Away.
He's like, it goes against everything we stand for as New Labour.
Yeah.
He's like, we can't get there by becoming what we oppose.
Yeah.
That's allegedly how he viewed it, and then Tony Blair went and saw him anyway.
That's the decision that has then led the media since then to be fully, like, more and more to the right. Do you think that's where it starts?
What, by going with Tony Blair on the...
By forcing Tony Blair to not align himself with Murdoch. Murdoch then decided from that moment on.
But he did align himself with Murdoch. Tony Blair, so that's the story, is that apparently Alistair Campbell was supposedly, and Gordon Brown were both very much like, don't do it, that's everything we stand for. Yeah. And Tony Blair went and met him, and he's buddy with him ever since.
I mean, the bloke's making coin, isn't he? Like, he's just travelling the world, just absolutely raking it in.
But Tony Blair was kind of like saying it's the necessary evil. Obviously, Tony Blair's gone on to be quite evil.
Alistair Campbell seems not to have been... I think he was in the beginning, but I think the rest of politics, because of the reasons we've just discussed, has sort of hit a level of popularity because of what it does and the way them two together works, and the fact they're so civil, that he seems to have managed to brush off the stain of his position within Tony Blair's government, but still hold the credibility. That
I think he wasn't as public either, was it? I mean, I know the media.
He didn't want to be front and centre. No, he wasn't Dominic Cummings. Do you know what I mean? He was smarter than Dominic Cummings. But that's the thing. I do sort of.
Do you think people like him look at people like Dominic Cummings and think, mate, the standard is so low? What's there to come out
about Alistair Campbell? We've seen the extreme version of how it's put across, but he can't have been a particularly nice person to work with.
No, bastard by all accounts.
Like, bullying accusations must be out 100%. There, and bending people to his will. But, like, sometimes you need that to grease the wheels, I guess. But it's funny. I'm okay with it when it's on our side.
I know your internet history. I know you're more than okay with bending people to your will.
Well, look, we can't talk about that in a public forum. Do you know what I mean?
You were looking at tractors. That's all you would do. You were just Googling tractors.
Who knew you weren't allowed to do that in Parliament? Not me. Not me. They asked me to stop immediately.
And I'll tell you now, when you look at this is a complaint about the modern world. When you look at a QWERTY keyboard, the letters for tractor are so close to big sex ladies near me. Like, it's way too close together. Yeah. Way too. I just think
it's a design.
You're asking for disaster. Microsoft, when they designed, if Microsoft were the ones who designed it, but let's go globalist conspiracy. When Microsoft designed it, they knew that was going to happen.
Did Microsoft design the QWERTY
I don't know.
keyboard?
I honestly don't know.
I want to Google that. I don't know who designed the QWERTY keyboard.
I think it was just a bloke.
Just a bloke. Very misogynistic of you.
Yeah, but think about when it was created.
What's your point?
Who designed QWERTY keyboard?
Who invented the QWERTY? Christopher Latham Scholes in 1870. So it wasn't Microsoft.
That's fair. Because when I think about it, typewriters have QWERTY as well. So that actually makes a lot of sense. Yeah, if you actually apply some logic.
Yeah.
Is that, but
we've talked about that, mate.
Chris Scholes.
Bro, we agreed before this we weren't going to fact check, by the way.
Oh my God, how good a moment is that, by the way? Just very quickly, the JD Vance
That
thing.
feels like what should be a breaking point. Do
And
you know
it's
what
not.
I mean? Like when a powerful person, a leader of the free world, or someone who wants
Assistant to the
be,
leader of the free world.
No,
Not
no,
to go
but
all Michael
the
Scott
second
on
most
you.
powerful person in the world, potentially. Do you know what I mean? That person is live on television going, look, we agreed before this, you weren't
Yeah,
gonna
the
fact
rules
check."
were you weren't going to fact check.
That should be a microcosm of everything that's wrong, but it's not. We just laugh at it.
Just contextually for the that don't know, he was
The
in
only
his
positive thing is it does look like Kamala Harris is going to win, so Yars queen.
he was in his vice presidential debate against Tim
if
Walz.
he gets shot again, or someone tries to shoot him, which they tried to do again, like, and that still didn't work.
And he was the one who suggested that he's the one who started the story about they're eating the cats and the dogs in Springfield, Ohio, and
They're eating the cats and the dogs.
and the moderator just said, I just want to point out that there is a large Haitian migration, a community of Haitian migrants in Springfield, but they are all there legally. They're not all come illegally. And he just literally, while she's talking, he goes, but the rules were you weren't going to fact check.
Yeah.
And it's like, you, bro, on national TV during a debate, during an election campaign.
Yeah.
The standards have never been lower, and yet every single election cycle, they somehow drop even further.
I'll tell you the standards that haven't dropped, bro. Our podcasting standards.
Hit it. I don't know what was going to come from. I don't know what I wanted you to do.
That's some world-class podcasting, my friend.
The words,
That's improv gone wrong,
the
isn't
words
it?
just came to me. It was like, hit it! And there was nothing to follow it.
I should have
Nothing.
If we ever have our own studio, there will be a button that's like a shuffle on an iPod button.
Yes.
That when you say hit it, we just get a random song. We
But
don't know
imagine
what
if we
it's gonna
get,
be.
I will remember you, and it just proper drops the tone of the thing.
But guys, let us know what you think. I can't even remember what we've been. It feels like we've been here for a while.
We've lost the Chagos Islands.
That's
how
right.
how infuriated are you at the loss of the Chagos Islands?
I've never been more angry. So let us know.
And do you
how
know what?
angry-
I was going to go there. Not now.
It was on your list.
Do
Do you know what? If you told me you were going to the Chagos Islands, I'd be like, yeah, of course you were.
I nearly couldn't come here today because I was going to be in Scotland.
What? Well, it's too late to talk about that now. We'll have to discuss that another time. But guys, Jake, point to the screen. You can find us on that point. You know what I mean? Don't point at the camera.
But that is the screen.
No, it's not.
Well, listen, if
The screen's down
if
here.
we're in YouTube, there's the screen. If someone's looking at us, that's the screen. So we're looking at the screen. That's the screen.
See, that's why people keep telling us to stop having the camera at the side. And it's like, yeah, but we can't afford two cameras. And
I would
don't know how
love to
make
have.
that
I would
work.
love to have two.
Yeah. Or have a studio set up of which that. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
Not just my mum's living room table, but we roll. And I do sort of love and hate the idea of a celebrity coming here to be interviewed.
I love it. I imagine Boris Johnson turning up here.
Oh, but yeah, so it'll be here on the screen. You can find us at Crossing Swords on Facebook, on Twitter at Swords Crossing, on Instagram and TikTok at Crossing Swords it's Crossing Swords _podcast.
Sorry, it's it again. I
At
spoke.
Instagram and TikTok, and on Google, you can email us at crossingswords19@gmail.com.
What's the TikTok and the Instagram?
Crossing Swords _podcast.
Fantastic. He nailed it.
Yeah,
We'll cut around the other bit.
that's fine. I
can't-
still don't know what I'm going to do about the beginning and our copyright
Hit it.
issues. Hit it.